Welcome to Releasing Trauma, a Survivor's Podcast. I am your host, Tracy Osborne. I am a survivor of emotional bullying, rape, sexual assault, domestic abuse, and grief. After losing my husband in 2019, I set off on a new adventure to help other women release their trauma and create a life they can cherish. Each week, I will feature a guest expert or survivor to share their stories, tips, wisdom, and more. The goal is so that you can take away even just the smallest nugget of information you can use in your life right now to make a change, and to remind you that you're not alone. There is life after trauma, and you can move from victim to thriver and create a life you can cherish. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode. I am your host, Tracy Osborne. With me today is Jen Smrz, and we are going to talk about overcoming breast cancer and depression and the anxiety and everything else that comes along with such a scary, terrifying diagnosis. So, Jen, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Tracy.
Well, I'm excited to talk to you and hear a little bit about your story. So why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about your background and your story?
For sure. So I've been in the fitness industry in a part-time capacity for over 20 years. So I've always had a passion for fitness and really clean eating and eating well, making, my own recipes or changing recipes and so forth with balance. I do enjoy my sweets. But it's coming up to 2 years. This May at 43, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And within 2 weeks, I had my first surgery. And then within 15 months, I had a total of 4 surgeries and 18 months of treatment. So it was a roller coaster, to say the least, both mentally, physically, even spiritually. And I've, in addition to going through that, probably 2 years earlier, I was experiencing low moods, some anxiety. I am a worrier. But it's challenging when you have young kids that depend on you and trying to keep up with the household and so forth. So over the years, I've just used various coping strategies to get through that. But it was certainly with my diagnosis, May of 2019, when, a lot of friends and family's reaction was, oh my gosh, like, how could you're so healthy. How could you get cancer? Which I'm sure we've all had cancer touch us in one way or the other. So we know it's not just healthy people or young people or old people. But it did make me want to learn a little bit more. How do people, what are some of the causes of it? Could I have done something differently? And the more research I was doing and reading different medical files and so forth, I continuously saw links between products or the food we eat to various ailments, specifically to cancers, as well as depression and various mental health, but also ADHD and autism and heart disease, things that we're hearing more and more. That was alarming to me. So I continued through my research and networking, and there were clear links between the chemicals and toxins in many household products to, again, these various ailments. We're hearing certainly from the foods, the processed foods, the sugars, the additives, the dyes, and some of the effects, and the fact that a lot of kids are getting ADHD and autism, and there's some links. So I found it fascinating. And over those 2 years plus, I've detoxed my entire home so that everything, we're just living holistically from the sense of natural products that I know are safer and healthier for my family and for myself.
Wow, that is incredible. So you're faced with this terrifying diagnosis. I would assume for me, it would be terrifying. What's going through your head?
I'll be honest, Tracy. So it certainly was scary. My husband and I, when we were told, we really were not expecting that news. So I did go for my mammogram, had to go for the second one, went for an ultrasound, went for a biopsy. So, I mean, as you go through those, appointments, you do get a little more worried. And then when I went for the biopsy, they hand you a piece of paper for your appointment with the surgeon. And my reaction is like, wow, we haven't even got the results. How come, why do I have this? So again, the worrying's coming out. And the nurse was very polite and friendly, saying, oh, no, this is just a precaution. We always set up these appointments. It doesn't mean anything. All patients get it. So that, put me at ease. And then talking to a few friends, they're like, oh, Jen, they haven't called you within 48 hours. You are good. Don't worry. It was probably, you work out a lot. It was probably just a muscle. I mean, they were making me feel better, but it made sense. Yeah, they hadn't called me within 48 hours. So when I went for the appointment, my husband, and it's not that he wasn't compassionate, but he wasn't even going to come with me. He's like, oh, I've got a lot of meetings. I'm like, they did say I should bring someone. So thank God they did. We really looked at each other when we got the news, and it just felt like they were speaking a different language. Like when the nurse is then going over the procedures and so forth, it was a blur. What was in my favor is I was told on a Tuesday evening, and 2 weeks later was my surgery. So I didn't have to wait a long time. I made myself busy. I was trying to do as many work assignments as I could, subbing, classes, seeing friends in the evening, just to distract me and not to think about it. And then the surgery came, and you think, good, now I can move on. Never knowing that it would have been an 18-month journey, but that's where it took me, and that's what has made me stronger and where I am today.
Wow. Now, you mentioned earlier that you used some coping strategies to help you get through it. What were some of those strategies?
So certainly meditation. And when I say that, I mean, you hear the word, and through my yoga classes, I've been teaching that at the end, just the breathing and so forth. I've never to this day been able to get into a meditative state, the sort of the euphoria that people talk about. But I do use deep belly breaths or just slow breaths. Try to ground myself if the thoughts and worries are out of control, or the active mind I've referred to. I try to, name the things I can see and hear. What can I feel? What can I smell? So just different mindful activities like that. I enjoy walking. So anytime, whether I was worrying about an appointment or whatever the case may be, doing exercise, it always helped me. It doesn't certainly help everyone, but getting out for walks and, instead of letting your mind go crazy or listening to a podcast is certainly a good thing as well. But I really tried to be in tune with, what do I see? Look at the colors, and those techniques have helped me get through it. And I would say, to sum it up, it's sort of trying to be mindful and in the present.
Those techniques are fantastic for keeping you in the present. With meditation, I find I don't get into the meditative state either, not very easily. And I can only go for probably about 5 minutes before my mind is like, okay, we're done being quiet now.
Right.
But, just that little bit helps me to get grounded and just kind of get back into reality, into the present moment. And
absolutely.
The same with, what do I see? What do I smell? What do I hear? That helps keep you in the present as well, and not worried about the future, because you can't predict the future.
Right, which is easier said than done when you're in the worrying state. But yes, for sure. And the other thing that was helpful for me, and again, it depends on the person or maybe even the circumstance, but I would grab ice and just hold it, and it's so cold and maybe even painful depending on people's thresholds. But that takes you out of the worrying and brings you to the present moment. So those are some of the things that has helped with me, in addition to yoga. that's something that I try to practice for many reasons, but it helped me get through the last couple of years for sure.
Did you find like any support groups that helped out, or journaling or anything like that as well?
I did. So journaling is something I still haven't really gotten into, and I've tried. But the gratitude, I guess gratitude journal is similar, where you just write out. And I try to do that on a daily basis. Either right when I wake up, it sort of starts your day in a positive note, or right before I go to bed. In terms of support groups, I was very lucky. So for the cancer piece, we have it's a non-for-profit called Wellsprings here in Ontario, and it's a facility that anyone that is going through cancer, or maybe their family members are going through cancer, it's various programs. So you can go. And there's a little library, there's a little meditation room, they do some yoga, there's counseling, there's cooking classes. Because of COVID, everything has gone online now, but it's such a great resource. I mean, friends and family have been wonderful, but having someone else go through the symptoms, go through losing your hair and how you feel, and the various surgeries and the deformities, and people can appreciate that it must be horrible, but having someone go through it is a different, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. I've never been through it. Thank God, knock on wood. Other than, like I lost my father to cancer, but I've personally never had it. So I can't imagine. I just can't fathom. How does it feel when you sit there and get the diagnosis? How does it feel when your hair starts falling out? I can't fathom that. Just like, you are not a survivor of sexual assault, so you wouldn't be able to understand how a survivor would feel. Like I can understand. Okay, I get the guilt, I get the shame, I get the blame, I get all of that because I've been there.
Right.
So having that support of people who have been there and totally get it is just so important, no matter what the trauma is.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now I know you did a lot of research, and one of the things that I've heard all the time is the whole alkaline acid diet, and cancer can't survive in an alkaline environment. What did you find out about that?
You know what? So yeah, I think it really depends on the system. I don't think there's a blanket similar to dieting, right? I don't think there's a blanket, because I think it depends on everyone's system. Certainly having high alkaline, and you want to have a balance, and different foods will make sure that you are balancing that. But just for an example, because I did read that, and I also read an article about apple cider vinegar being, very good for a number of different ailments and arthritis and the pains that I went through with the chemo. Well, I tried using that, and I mean, I'm a small frame. I was literally keeled over. It just wiped my system out. So when I say I do research, I certainly didn't on the whole cancer piece, because I would have really let myself go down the rabbit hole in fear. Like I trusted the health system and asking them questions. And it wasn't until after my chemo was done that I started trying to read more in terms of, yes, the foods that you eat, and, red meats, and, obviously not supposed to be as good, or any meats in general, eating a lot of vegetables. I certainly heard about that, but it was more the products that alarmed me, whether it was your cleaning products or the air fresheners or dish detergents, things that I wouldn't have thought could be so harmful to our systems. But they compared it. There was a few studies that they compared cleaning your home once a week is equivalent to smoking a pack of cigarettes a day, because of the fumes and so forth that get into your lungs.
Oh, goodness.
So Right. And it's stats like that. And knowing that it only takes 26 seconds for things to be absorbed into your skin. So you think, yeah, I'm going to use, natural moisturizer. Great. But it's also, the candle that you're burning, or what you're washing the dishes with, like that, all those other substances that I didn't think of, that are being absorbed.
Toothpaste, your makeup.
You're exactly, yeah. I mean, toothpaste, you're just brushing your teeth and spitting it out. Well, yeah, but it's being absorbed.
So it's still being absorbed.
It's opened my eyes. And I you know what, it's, when I talk to people, it's certainly not to scare them, or, if they aren't using natural products, that's never my intention. Mm-hmm. I just know I've gone on the opposite extreme, probably because of the diagnosis that I had, and the year of more than a year, the year and a half of all the turmoil. So sure. Everyone has to sort of figure out what makes sense to them, but it is being aware, I think, is the important message.
Absolutely. Jen, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on, sharing a little bit about your story and your journey, and giving us some ideas on how to cope with such a diagnosis. So I really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks again for inviting me.
Absolutely. And where can we find you online?
So I'm on Facebook. I do have a Facebook group called Jen's Journey to Holistic Living. I am on LinkedIn as well. Instagram, I'm trying to figure out that platform, but my handle is Smrz, SMRZ, JENN. So just my name backwards, Smrz Jen. So I would.
Fantastic. And listeners, as always, I'm going to put all those down in the show notes for you. If you're listening on one of our partner stations, go to releasingtraumapodcast.com, pull up Jen's show, and all her contact information will be there for you. So thank you for listening, as always, and we'll talk to you on the next show.